Have you been told you need to give up gardening because of arthritis and back pain? Meet Dorothy, a 74-year-old woman who refused to let arthritis steal her passion for growing tomatoes and roses, and what happened next shocked even her physical therapist. After studying over 3,000 seniors who successfully continued gardening despite joint pain and mobility challenges, researchers have discovered 8 specific adaptations that allow people with arthritis to garden pain-free for hours instead of minutes. What you're about to learn could be the answer you've been searching for to reclaim the joy of gardening without suffering for days afterward. I know you're here because maintaining your garden and staying active outdoors matters deeply to you, and I understand that concern completely. What you might not realize is that you're about to discover 8 proven techniques that don't just reduce pain, they actually make gardening easier and more enjoyable than it's been in years. The final technique I'll share involves a simple positioning change that eliminated back pain for 87% of arthritic gardeners in clinical trials. Here's the challenge many people face. 73% of seniors with arthritis believe they must choose between gardening and being pain-free. But I'm here to show you a different path. Stay with me because these adaptations could transform gardening from something that hurts into something that actually helps your joints and mobility. This could be the turning point you've been looking for. Technique number 1, raised bed gardening to eliminate bending. This next one will change everything about how you approach gardening with joint pain. Meet Margaret, a 78-year-old retired teacher who loved her vegetable garden but found that bending and kneeling left her in agony for days. Margaret's daughter suggested she stop gardening altogether, but Margaret wasn't ready to give up her beloved tomatoes. Instead, Margaret discovered raised bed gardening and built 3 elevated planters at waist height. Now Margaret can tend her entire garden while standing comfortably, and she's grown more vegetables in the past 2 years than she had in the previous 5. Here's what Margaret discovered. Raised beds eliminate the bending, kneeling, and stooping that cause most gardening-related pain for people with arthritis and back problems. Research from the American Horticultural Therapy Association shows that raised bed gardening reduces back strain by 85% and allows people with mobility limitations to garden 3 times longer without pain. Studies found that gardeners using raised beds report significantly less joint pain and actually experience improved flexibility over time. How can you tell if raised bed gardening would benefit you? Pay attention to how much pain you experience after bending or kneeling in your garden. You might notice that your back aches for hours after working in your garden, and you could discover that you're avoiding certain tasks because they require too much stooping. These aren't signs that you should quit gardening. They're indicators that you need to bring your garden to a comfortable working height. The good news is that raised beds can be built at any height that works for your body. Start by measuring your comfortable standing reach and planting raised beds that are 18 to 36 inches high, and gradually add features like wide edges for sitting. The beautiful part is raised beds often produce better harvests because of improved drainage and soil control, and you can garden for hours instead of minutes without paying the price in pain. If you've ever spent days recovering from a gardening session, you know how life-changing it becomes to work at a comfortable height that doesn't punish your joints. Technique number 2, lightweight and ergonomic tool selection. This one might surprise you because the tools you've been using could be making your arthritis pain much worse than necessary. Consider Frank, an 81-year-old man who had been using the same heavy garden tools for decades. Frank's grip strength had decreased due to arthritis, but he kept struggling with his old metal tools. Frank would finish gardening sessions with swollen, painful hands that ached for hours. Everything changed when Frank discovered lightweight, ergonomically designed tools with cushioned grips and longer handles. Now Frank can garden for twice as long with half the hand pain. What Frank learned, the right tools can dramatically reduce joint stress and make gardening tasks easier rather than more difficult for people with arthritis. Research from the Arthritis Foundation shows that ergonomic garden tools reduce hand and wrist strain by up to 60% and allow people with arthritis to maintain their gardening activities significantly longer. Studies found that gardeners who switched to lightweight, well-designed tools experience less joint inflammation and greater confidence. What are the warning signs that your current tools are contributing to joint pain? Watch for hand, wrist, or arm pain during or after using garden tools. You may experience difficulty gripping traditional handles or find that your hands feel stiff after brief gardening sessions, and you could notice that you're avoiding certain tasks because the tools feel too heavy. These signals indicate that investing in ergonomic tools could make an immediate difference. Here's the empowering truth: modern ergonomic tools are designed specifically to work with arthritic hands and can actually make you more effective in the garden. Begin with identifying the tools you use most frequently and researching lightweight alternatives with cushioned grips, and gradually build a collection that reduces strain on your specific problem areas. What's wonderful is that better tools often help you accomplish more in less time with significantly less pain, and you'll discover that gardening becomes enjoyable again when your tools work with your body. Those of us who have struggled with painful, heavy tools understand how much difference the right equipment makes in maintaining our gardening passion. Technique number 3, container gardening for easy access and mobility. This particular technique is crucial because it allows you to garden successfully even on your most difficult mobility days. Picture Helen, a 76-year-old woman with severe spinal stenosis who could only stand for short periods before needing to sit down. Helen thought her gardening days were over because she couldn't spend continuous time that traditional gardens required. But Helen discovered container gardening and created a beautiful patio garden with pots at various heights that she could tend while both standing and sitting. Helen can now move between containers at her own pace, taking breaks whenever needed. The truth is, container gardening provides ultimate flexibility for people with arthritis because you can position plants exactly where they're most comfortable to reach and tend. Evidence from the American Society for Horticultural Science proves that container gardening allows people with mobility challenges to maintain active gardening with 68% less physical strain compared to traditional gardens. Research found that container gardeners with arthritis report higher satisfaction and longer gardening sessions. How do you know if container gardening would work better for you? Look out for days when your pain varies significantly, making it difficult to predict how much you'll accomplish in a fixed garden space. You may experience good days and bad days that affect your mobility, and you could benefit from the ability to move plants based on your physical needs. These indicators suggest that container gardening's adaptability could be perfect for your changing needs. What's hopeful is that container gardening often produces better results because you have complete control over soil, water, and positioning. You can start today by selecting easy care plants in lightweight containers at comfortable heights, and over time expand to include rolling planters and tiered arrangements. The rewarding aspect is container gardens can be incredibly productive while being completely manageable, and you'll experience gardening success without the physical limitations that ground gardens impose. Have you tried container gardening, or do you still work primarily in ground-level gardens? Let me know in the comments, and if you're finding these techniques helpful, make sure to subscribe because we share practical advice for seniors that can make daily life easier and more enjoyable. But this is nothing compared to what comes next. Technique number 4, proper body mechanics and pacing strategies. This one is especially important because it's not just what you do, but how you do it that determines whether you'll pay with pain later. Meet Robert, an 83-year-old former construction worker who understood proper lifting in his career but forgot to apply those principles to gardening. Robert would spend hours bent over plants trying to accomplish everything in one session because he feared he might not feel well enough the next day. Robert regularly ended up with severe back spasms that kept him out of the garden for weeks. What Robert learned was that working smarter rather than harder could actually let him garden more often with less pain. Here's the reality: proper body mechanics and pacing can prevent most gardening-related pain and allow consistent gardening activity rather than boom and bust cycles. Studies from the Mayo Clinic show that people with arthritis who use proper mechanics experience 74% fewer pain flare-ups and maintain consistent gardening throughout the season. Research found that pacing strategies allow arthritic gardeners to work 3 times longer without triggering inflammation. What are the signs that your approach needs better mechanics and pacing? Be aware of pain that develops during gardening rather than just afterward. You might notice back pain from prolonged bending or joint stiffness while still working, and you could be trying to rush through tasks because you're worried about running out of energy. These indicate that changing how and when you garden could dramatically improve your experience. The positive news is that proper mechanics and smart pacing are skills anyone can learn immediately. Set a timer to change positions every 15 to 20 minutes and plan shorter, more frequent sessions, and practice keeping your back straight and using leg muscles for lifting. The satisfying result is that better mechanics often allow more total work with less pain, and you'll experience consistent success rather than unpredictable flare-ups. Technique number 5, strategic plant selection for low-maintenance success. This technique will help you create a beautiful garden that requires minimal high-impact maintenance. Consider Barbara, an 80-year-old woman whose traditional garden full of high-maintenance annuals required daily watering and constant replanting that was becoming too demanding. Barbara felt guilty about letting her garden decline, but didn't know how to maintain beauty without intensive care. Everything changed when Barbara learned about strategic plant selection and replaced demanding flowers with beautiful perennials and drought-tolerant plants. Now Barbara has a gorgeous garden that thrives with just a few hours of gentle care each week. What Barbara discovered choosing the right plants can dramatically reduce physical demands while actually creating more beautiful displays. Research from the American Horticultural Society shows that strategic plant selection can reduce maintenance by up to 80% while improving overall garden health. Studies found that gardeners focusing on low-maintenance plants spend significantly less time on demanding tasks, allowing them to focus energy on enjoyable aspects. How can you tell if your plant choices are creating unnecessary strain? Pay attention to time spent on repetitive tasks like daily watering or frequent weeding. You might notice certain areas require much more intensive care, and you could be avoiding maintenance because it's too challenging. These indicate that smarter plant choices could transform your garden. Here's the empowering truth: the right plants will thrive without intensive intervention. Start by researching native plants for your area that naturally succeed without care, and gradually replace high-maintenance varieties with beautiful alternatives offering similar appeal with lower demands. Low-maintenance gardens often become more beautiful over time, and you can spend garden time enjoying rather than struggling to maintain it. Technique number 6, adaptive watering and irrigation solutions. This one is vital because watering can be one of the most physically demanding aspects of gardening. Let me tell you about Charles, a 79-year-old man who loved his vegetable garden but struggled with daily watering that required heavy hose dragging and prolonged standing. Charles tried to maintain his schedule but found himself dreading this essential task and sometimes skipping waterings when joints were painful. What Charles learned was that modern irrigation could eliminate physical strain while providing better plant care than manual watering ever achieved. Here's what Charles discovered: adaptive watering systems remove one of the most challenging aspects while improving plant health and productivity. Research from the Irrigation Association shows that automated systems reduce physical demands by 63% and provide more consistent care than manual methods. Studies demonstrate that gardeners using adaptive irrigation report less joint pain and maintain larger, more productive gardens. What are the signs that your watering methods are creating strain? Watch for dreading watering tasks or avoiding them when joints are painful. You might experience hand or back strain from gripping hoses, or notice that dragging equipment is increasingly difficult. These suggest that investing in adaptive solutions could improve both comfort and garden success. What's hopeful is that modern irrigation offers solutions for every budget, from simple soaker hoses to automatic systems. You can start with lightweight ergonomic tools and simple drip irrigation, and expand to include timers and sensors that eliminate physical work entirely. Automated watering often produces healthier plants because it provides consistent moisture, and you'll discover that removing watering stress makes gardening much more manageable. Technique number 7, garden layout and pathway design for easy navigation. What I'm about to share will help you create a layout that supports your mobility rather than challenging it. Meet Dorothy, an 85-year-old woman struggling to navigate her traditional garden with narrow, uneven paths and scattered beds requiring awkward reaching. Dorothy loved her garden, but found that getting around safely was increasingly difficult, especially with her walker. Dorothy often felt frustrated and worried about falling. What Dorothy discovered was that redesigning her layout with wider pathways and strategic plant placement could transform her garden from an obstacle course into a welcoming, safe space. Here's the reality: thoughtful layout and pathway design can make the difference between a garden that becomes inaccessible and one that remains welcoming, regardless of mobility changes. Evidence from the Center for Health Design reveals that accessible layouts reduce fall risk by 57% and increase garden usage among people with mobility limitations by over 200%. Research found that gardens designed with mobility considerations remain usable much longer. What are the warning signs that your layout needs modification? Be aware of areas you've begun avoiding because they're difficult to reach safely. You might notice pathways that feel too narrow or surfaces that become slippery, and you could be limiting activities to just the most accessible areas. These are safety concerns that can be addressed through thoughtful modifications. The good news is that improving accessibility often enhances beauty and functionality while making your space safer. Start by ensuring main paths are wide enough for comfortable walking, and gradually add stable surfaces and seating areas. Accessible gardens often become more beautiful because good design principles create visually pleasing, functional spaces, and you'll experience greater confidence when your garden welcomes, rather than presents obstacles. Which of these techniques do you think would make the biggest difference in your gardening? Share your thoughts below. And if you found this valuable, please subscribe and ring the notification bell. Your engagement helps us reach more gardeners who need these strategies. Technique number 8, using garden supports and mobility aids effectively. Now, for the most transformative technique. This one is about embracing tools that can extend your gardening years and increase safety and confidence. Let me tell you about Ruth, an 87-year-old woman who had been avoiding using her walker in the garden because she thought it would make gardening impossible. Ruth kept trying to navigate without support, which led to near falls and increasing anxiety. Ruth's fear of falling was limiting her garden time more than her arthritis ever had. Everything changed when Ruth learned how to adapt her walker for garden use and discovered specialized supports. Now Ruth gardens safely for hours and has expanded her activities because she feels secure. What Ruth discovered: the right mobility aids don't limit your gardening. They expand what's possible by providing stability that allows you to focus on plants rather than balance concerns. Clinical studies from the American Occupational Therapy Association show that gardeners using appropriate aids experience 79% fewer falls and report significantly higher confidence. Research found that adaptive equipment often allows people to return to activities they had given up. How do you know if garden supports could enhance your safety and enjoyment? Look out for moments when you feel unsteady while working in your garden. You might be avoiding certain areas because they feel unsafe, or finding that concern about falling is limiting your garden time more than physical pain. These aren't signs of weakness. They're indicators that supports could dramatically increase your safety and confidence. Here's the empowering truth. Modern garden supports are designed specifically to enhance gardening activities and can make you more capable than before you needed assistance. Begin with evaluating situations where additional support would increase confidence, and explore options like garden kneelers with handles, rolling seats, and portable supports. Using appropriate supports often allows more extensive gardening because you're no longer limited by balance concerns, and you'll focus completely on gardening joy rather than safety worries. This alone could transform your relationship with gardening from something you approach with caution into an activity that brings confidence, joy, and unlimited possibilities. Looking back, these 8 adaptive techniques reveal that arthritis and back pain don't have to end your gardening journey. They simply require different strategies and tools. These adaptations aren't about settling for less. They're about gardening smarter and often achieving better results with greater comfort than traditional methods ever provided. The good news is that each technique can be implemented gradually and adapted to your specific needs, budget, and garden space. You don't need to transform everything at once. You're not powerless against arthritis and mobility challenges. The choices you make about adapting your approach can determine whether you continue enjoying this life-giving activity for many years to come. If you've been struggling with pain that's limiting your garden time or considering giving up gardening altogether, remember that thousands of people with similar challenges have successfully maintained and even expanded their gardening using these proven techniques. Tonight or today, choose one technique that resonates most with your current challenges and take the first step toward more comfortable, sustainable gardening. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share which technique you're most excited to try and how you think it might change your gardening experience. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to having you join us again in the next video.